Hey there! What's life giving you today? Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast, where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. This episode, we have a guest with, yes, another perspective to healing. But first, we need to set that theme. So let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is development. This is the process that creates growth and positive change in various outlooks. But I did mention process, right? Sometimes pain and suffering begins that evolution. Now, I come from an IT background, and I understand the demands that the word development has on it. Even in the workforce, the mental strain can take a physical toll on you. It's all wound together in this tightly knotted ball of yarn. It's the unraveling that we do within ourselves that helps us see with clarity our growth even beyond those around and before us. Well, that's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? And there's no one better to do that than herself, Dr. Lynn. Why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you are going to share with us today?
Oh, thank you so much, Krystal. I appreciate being here. It's an honor. I guess always feel like my journey goes back to my teenage years. I always felt there had to be more to life than what I was being shown. And I do believe mental and emotional stress manifests as disease. And I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was 14. And I only knew, my family only followed what the mainstream medical world told them. So I ended up having spinal surgery at 15 where they put Harrington rods in my spine to prevent it from curving more. And the surgery itself was a success, but then it left me later. I always had pain or was always sick, just on and off for years throughout my teenage years. And every time I would go to get help with whatever symptom I had, I always used to ask, I keep getting sick. Why does this keep happening? And no one had an answer for me. So I was in college. The depression was growing more because I just hated school, even though I was a good student. I studied hard. I worked hard, had good grades, but I just hated school. But I was in college because I was told that's what you have to do to be successful, trying to find myself. And someone gave me a pamphlet on chiropractic to look into as a profession. I had no idea what it was, but I read the pamphlet and it said the power that made the body heals the body. And I thought, why hasn't anyone told me this through all these last few years of being sick and in pain? And it just spoke to me. And I ended up just going to chiropractic school just on the philosophy. I didn't even get adjusted until I got there. But once I got there, it just changed. It was the beginning of changing my whole life. And that was my journey to self-healing.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess I'm interested. Why did you hate school so?
It just felt like a prison to me. And I questioned everything I was being taught. That I'm like, well, am I really going to need this when I get out? And, my mom would say, well, these are the best years of your life. Wait till you get out. You're going to wish you were back in. I thought, oh my God, it gets worse than this. And then I used to say, well, when am I going to need this algebra or this calculus or all this craziness that I was studying? Because you're in mainstream life and I don't see anybody really using it. I just thought I was missing something. And she's like, you'll need it when you get out. Well, I'm almost 50 years old. I have never needed anything I was taught in school. I mean, even my chiropractic journey, I feel like I became really a good chiropractor because of my own personal healing and all the side seminars I took learning directly from chiropractors. Then the actual mainstream school system worried about me getting a license. They filled my head with all kinds of stuff that really didn't help me in the real world. And I have confirmation now. Like when I got out and opened up my practice, no one taught me about money or business or the economy I had no life skills. All this years of study. And I was stressed. It made me sick. I worked hard, worried about everything. I can attest that it did not help me. So I just feel like we need to find more of a balance between the two, life skills and what our educational system is actually doing.
Oh, good point. Good point. I think they start a little bit in elementary, then high school, and then after that, it doesn't dip. It like goes off a cliff once we hit college. So yep. they kind of skip all over that. So that's a good message for the school systems out there to kind of keep that in practice, because I think I can benefit from it too. I mean, unless you're majoring in marketing or business, you don't get it.
Yep.
You don't get it. And it can cause a lot of strain and a lot of stress. So you said that your depression, it hit during college years or in the emotional piece. Where did that part come in for you?
I would definitely say my teenage years. I just was trying to get through. I just kept thinking, there's got to be a light at the end of this tunnel. I didn't know where it was, but I just kept thinking there had to be something else. Then I just, working hard in school, I would work after, I had a job after school in our family business, and I just didn't enjoy any of it. And I was just stressed all the time. And I always felt like I had to worry about something, not enough. All this, poverty consciousness. Everybody had to just sacrifice. And we never talked about being happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't see anybody happy. So I thought, well, what the heck are we all doing? What's the point of this?
You're hitting on some, I'm telling you, you're related to so many different people here.
And then it's so funny because I was raised Catholic and it was like all this guilt. So like I was even like feeling like for me to even have these thoughts and emotions, I should feel bad about because I wasn't grateful for what all the work and sacrifice everybody was doing for me. But yet there was no happiness involved. I don't know. It seemed like insanity.
Yeah. Okay. You're setting a really good foundation for us. So now you talked about your chiropractic. And so tell me again about what attracted you to it, because I heard a piece of it, but what attracted to you again? And then what made you continue on with that? And how did you expound on that? All I know is adjustments, hip adjustments, back adjustments, things like that. But you took it a whole step further. So tell me about how all that kind of transpired.
Yeah. So you have to figure, I feel like I had the perfect components to really heal because I had been basically the medical world screwed me up. They didn't have answers for me. And that was like for 5 years, or more by the time I got to chiropractic school. Moved to chiropractic school, and I was surrounded by a cocoon of people who were like-minded, open-minded, looking at an alternative way to heal the body. So I had all this support around me, which a lot of people, when they're trying to heal, don't have that gift. They're looking for that. I think that's a key component. Then I was in school learning, training my mind while I was going through my pain, but I'm retraining my mind to say, hey, the body is always healing itself. So that philosophy that I read, the power that made the body heals the body. We recognize in chiropractic world that there's an inner wisdom, or we called it innate intelligence, that is always running the body. I mean, as we're sitting here, all our organs are working, right? Can you imagine the millions of functions going on just in this very second, all day, every day, that our little human minds could never regulate all that. There's something bigger than us here. So we tap into that. Like we look at, well, what's the body trying to do? Why is it symptomatic? What's it trying to do? We look at some symptoms as good. Like the mainstream always wants to label symptoms as bad so they could drug it or cut it out. But we look at like, well, what's the body trying to do? It's always self-regulating. It's always wanting to bring itself back to health. What's preventing it? So even a fever, we don't want to stop the fever. We recommend not taking that Advil or whatever to stop the fever because there's so many important processes when your body has a fever. We should really let it run its course. And by us taking the pill to interfere with that body's natural function does so much more harm than if you just let it run course. But so it was a whole different way of looking at the body. And I started getting the adjustments and I didn't feel anything right away. In fact, I started getting more pain because it started waking things up in my body that were so traumatized, all the scar tissue, the surgeries, all this stuff. They kept telling me it takes time to heal because it took you time to get that way. And I'm like, well, I have nothing but time because I already tried everything and it didn't work. So I had all these components in my favor, I think, towards healing. And what happened was it took a couple years for me to get out of pain, but I was empowered. So I lost the fear that I couldn't get better. And I really feel like that was the turning point where the pain started to subside. And I also found purpose in my life now instead of being like, well, why are we here? Now I was fired up with this message that we heal ourselves, and I really wanted to get out and share it with the world. I thought this is part of the reason why people are so unhappy. They feel so victimized. And I'm finding this empowering piece that can really start to give people hope again. So I think it was like the combinations of the perfect storm that truly led to the beginning of my journey and my transformation.
I really like how you said, and that's interesting, right? So, because I started this thought, and it was interesting how you were going to do something that was recommended to you, and it may not have been the best way to achieve what you were looking for, but it awakened something in you, that even scar tissue, awakened a certain pain for you, so that you can seek this other empowerment that you and put you on this journey, right? And I really like that piece of what you were saying. Is that one, that was the one that really hit me, was that I had to awaken pain inside of me for me to heal. And I think that's something that people do, kind of to what you're saying with the fever, is they take opioids or whatever, medicine, what have you, to avoid going through the pain. And this is me speaking figuratively, because I don't know, I can't deal with a headache for too long, but but I completely understand what you're saying. And a lot of things with the body is that it does work. A lot of things, once you start to learn more and research more about your body and all of the things that we do to help us smell better, or to help us do, hygienic things, the body is doing all of this on its own. And so I really, that's a really powerful message. Now that you said that you're surrounded by all these people who are open-minded to alternative care, did you start back at home, or did you go home with that in mind and then try to bring that there?
Yeah. So when I graduated, I was like ignorance on fire. I thought, I'm just going to go back with all my new knowledge and open up my practice and change the world. That's really what I thought I was going to do. And then there was a couple of things that happened, real life, I realized a lot of people were not ready to hear what I had to say. They just kind of still wanted the pill to fix it and take the pain away and move on, or me to just adjust them and make it all better and move on. And also, I opened my practice, and I just was blown away by what it took to open a practice, run a business, and I had no knowledge or skills. And that's when I just started educating myself. I started reading, and I came across a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that's when he confirmed that we do not get financial education in school. And I was just like, I knew it. I knew I knew something was missing doing all this stuff I was doing. So it was like all these things started happening. And then I started working on people. And I saw the common theme was, people needed to learn to do the inner work, to really get in tune, to change their mindset, to really work on their lifestyle. They were stressed out, they were stressed, and they weren't connecting the stress that they were living to the physical symptoms that were happening to them. And I thought, until they bridge this gap and then empower themselves to actually make change in their life, this could go on forever. And eventually, they might have surface symptoms now, but it's going to create more disease in them because they're blocking their life force, their life flow from all the stress that they're under. And that's the rat race lifestyle that I see so many people living.
And that's interesting. So the thing about change, right, is it's mindset change, but it's behavior change, it's situational change, it's a whole lot of change. And small towns do not like that at all.
I know.
So how was that received well, even though you were giving great advice? I mean, even if you hit the minutia, right, it's still not enough to keep a practice going. What did that do for you, or was it inhibiting? And if it was, what ultimately did you kind of start to move forward with?
Well, I guess my thing was I just had to keep putting the message out there. You plant seeds. I couldn't expect people to go from A to Z in one visit. I was hoping I just planted seeds. So I put a lot of information in my office that would help change their mindset, change their perspective on how the body heals. Like I would give little articles each week. I would change the information. I would put like a inspirational message on my had a little board that I would, because I really wanted to create a positive environment, a healing environment for them where they could feel the difference in the energy, and I knew as the more they got worked on too, which they would become more in tune with the energy of their body. And I would make suggestions. I always recommended books. I was a big reader, and things that they could do to empower themselves. So I just had to accept the fact that people had to go on their own journey, their own self-evolution in their own time. And all I could do was plant the seed. And in the meantime, I just kind of was going deeper and deeper into my own spiritual journey because I was getting more in tune with energy by working on people. I went on a few mission trips to Brazil and India where we just adjusted people for free with brought chiropractic to those parts of the world. And the energy was so powerful. And I ended up going into a grace state, that I call it, where you just got blissed out happy. It's like falling in love, but there's no other person involved. It's you're just blissed out, and there's really no words to describe it. I had to figure out what I was going through, but it lasted like 18 months, and there was nothing that happened in my life directly at that time when it happened. Things that led up to it, but then all of a sudden I felt this, and I thought, this is what everybody's looking for. This is our natural state. This high vibrational love vibe is what is our natural state. I want to reorient people to get back in tune and create a life from there, because that's what everybody's searching for. When you drink, the drugs, the partying, the next relationship, the more money, the bigger house, all these things, they think we're going to fill that void. And when we don't fill the void, it's because, well, you get a quick high, a little adrenaline rush, but it's not lasting, right?
Yep.
So I tapped into a place where, this is our natural state. So, but I believe by doing the personal development work, mindset work, learning natural healing, even becoming financially free, I believe all these are key pieces to bring you back to yourself, to really become sovereign beings that we're meant to be, to raise the vibration, to raise the consciousness, and to really create your heaven on earth. I believe that's why we are here.
Wow. Okay. Hashtag blissed out.
Wow. Yes.
That is such I don't know. That's such a heavy word and heavy phrase, because it was to fall in love, like you said, and then be in a bliss state and not have anyone involved, because we're so hyper focused on finding the partner. We're so hyper focused on finding someone to be with, to live out the rest of our lives with, or what have you, and we don't prepare ourselves to be with that person. We don't prepare ourselves to be happy with ourselves before we're able to enjoy this bliss with someone else. You know what I mean? So, wow. So did you achieve this state while you were out on the missions, or when you kind of came back?
It was, when I was in Brazil, I definitely reached the high vibration, this love vibe. That's what I want to call it. I didn't understand it. Like it's like you didn't understand it. And I knew sometimes it could happen when you get adjusted, because it raises your energy. And we were all adjusting each other. We're adjusting all these people. So we were all like really like high on life, right? In this blissed out state. Mm-hmm. And then I came home, like I went 3 years in a row. I came home and I just fell into a depression again because the vibration went so low. I couldn't maintain what I tapped into, but I tapped into something and I knew it was important. I'm like, what was that? Like, this is the overall nutshell that I'm telling you now, but it was like years in between, and it was, I would say after 3 years of doing that, just once a year, and then working on people in my office, I just went into this place and I was like, oh, this is what we're looking for. And I had to understand what I was I couldn't understand what I was feeling. Like, and I didn't know how to verbalize it to somebody because there wasn't anybody around me who understood, what I was going through. So it was like, I was just witnessing, but it's like when you think you have problems in life, all of a sudden you're like feeling like you don't have any problems in life. It's kind of silly what we're going through in this human condition. But I started reading like the Sufi masters, the saints, the ones who had these blissed out experiences. Like I remember Rumi, Hafiz, these Sufi poets, what they were writing, I was like, that's what I feel. I understand what they're talking about now. So I would find it, the saints, some of the Catholic saints, they would have these experiences of, they called it something. I can't remember the term right at the moment. And I was like, that's it. So I had to orient myself on what I was feeling. And then I feel like I said, okay, now I feel this way, but I don't feel like my life is set up for freedom. I need to now, how do I create my life to match this state? So I was trying to connect these dots and how do I get here on purpose? And because I kind of got there by default. So I was like, how do we do this? So that was kind of the journey that I was piecing together ever since.
Okay, so when you came back to your hometown, right?
Yep.
Did you think at that point when you got there, it's my environment, and then I probably have outgrown where I'm at now, and then I had to leave here to continue my journey elsewhere? Did that happen?
It did, but it came later. I was big on, I wanted to be financially free because I already felt the limitations of my office. I thought I never got into it for money. Money was never my forefront. I always wanted freedom. I knew other people needed freedom too. I saw how it was holding them back in healing and being happy and all these things. And it wasn't about the money. It was the choices, making choices, being free to choose how to live, right? Because money can be a burden too. So it's coming to terms with all these things. So I started doing real estate investing because I thought I could have passive income. Like I could put my practice in a building and have passive income to pay the rent, take some pressure off but then I felt this pressure, like if I closed, I always had to let people know. If I just wanted to take a trip, it was like all on me. And I never really found another chiropractor to come in. I tried a couple of times. I never found the right partner to take over for me because it was so personalized. It's like your hairdresser, like they like your touch. So I just felt this, like I felt this pressure, like I couldn't get boundaries. And I think I was working on boundaries anyway with my family, my mom, like I just felt this entrapment. So, but I was working on becoming financially free, learned a lot in the process. And then I ended up having my son, not planned at all, because I didn't even know if I wanted to bring kids into this world, but I got pregnant. It was totally by divine order. But I went through this dark night of the soul while I was pregnant. Because I was like, really? I don't know what if I don't take to being a mom? I can't give them back. It was like all these thoughts.
Right.
And I had him, and like, it totally changed my life in the sense, and it was because he came in a blissed out state. Like we come in as pure beings, right? Until society does stuff to us,
Yeah.
Whether it's abuse, whether it's all these limiting beliefs, whether it's all this guilt, it's all these things that we pick all that up along the way, and it dims our light. It dims our life force, which is our healing force, right? So it's dimming our immune system. It's all these things. But I had the gift, the greatest gift. I feel like my son is like my soulmate. He came to teach me. I just watched him. I'm like, look how he just makes himself happy all the time. He just finds something to bliss himself out on. And I was very aware of how I wanted to speak to him. I didn't want to take that away from him with my limiting beliefs. So like, even how I talk to him about if we're at a store, if he wants to buy something, I would never say, oh, we can't afford it. I had to like, okay, let's plan for next week. Or, because I knew that's what was done to me and why I struggle with the money. So, but he always manifested everything he needed, right? Always happy. So, and I also had the gift of chiropractic. Like I had him at home, had home birth. He was never, had no jab, no vaccinations, no circumcision. I never needed to go to a medical doctor with him. He was always healthy. He never needed antibiotics, things like that. We didn't live in that state. So he really was, I adjusted him. He was raised without interference, and I raised him to think for himself and to feel what he wanted, to stay in tune with his bliss. So I had this little boy teaching me so much. And when he was about 3 is when I realized, oh my God, I outgrew my hometown. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want my practice. Blah, blah. I want this, and this. I'm like, oh, how am I going to do that? It was a little drastic. And it took me probably 7 years of working on myself and untangling myself from everything to move out of that place. It was a journey. It was a journey. It's still a journey. But, that was the evolution of that.
Oh my God. Kids are so beautiful. You're telling me this same story. I have my own story, but we've talked about this offline, but it's the same thing. My son was what we call the oops baby. And And he's totally out of nowhere. There's no, I don't even know how, but we had him, and he's literally saved my life. And the rest of my kids that I do have, and they're also different in their own way, they comfort me in various ways that suit them, you know? And it's interesting how your son does that for you, right? Fulfills you in ways, like you said, it's like a soulmate. Oh man, it's a type of love that I'll be honest with you. My husband, I'm like, I don't know if you're going to get jealous or not, but you're going to have to take it, because this is the kind of love that is, like you said, it's a bliss love for your child.
Yeah.
And so I love to hear that you said that. I wanted to kind of keep on that same path. So how hard was it let me step back. So for me to leave my hometown was not difficult whatsoever. Okay. I was up out of there. Like the first chance, oh my God, sister would tell me, first train smoking, I was out. How did it impact you? How hard was it? Did you have any feelings about it? Kind of any of that? Because that could set in depression and anxiety as well, right?
Yeah, so I felt there was a lot of things, a lot of components. I am an only child to my mom. My dad died when I was young. So I felt a lot of obligation to be there. I felt she put me through school. It was almost like it was her degree. You know what I mean? And I was set up as the doctor in a practice, and I think that's the part she understood. But for me, that was like the facade. I was on a spiritual journey, and I was having all these experiences. My soul wanted to go to Miami Beach, and I wanted to build my network marketing business because I found this little vehicle that I could be financially free with, but I could empower people with their health and their wealth and their mindset. It was like everything I was looking for. And I felt like I was betraying chiropractic because I loved chiropractic. It was like my first purpose, my first passion in life. And I still do. It's just a way of life for me. But I didn't understand. I really didn't want to get into it for the business reason. The business of it wasn't for me, if that makes sense. So I felt like I was betraying my profession, my family, my mom, and then my practice member, like people who came to see me. I felt like I had to be there for them. I'm not going to be there for them, and it was like all this stuff I had to come to peace with that I guess just had to fester for a few years until it became, the pain of staying became greater than not going. You know what I mean? Going. So it was like a 7-year journey for me that I finally everything finally, and there would of course be outside reasons that I couldn't go yet. You know what I mean? Because until you're clear about making the move, you're always going to have outside obstacles, right? So I had all these things that kept coming up until it finally, all the pieces came together, and I was like, okay, this is the window. I got to jump. Go now. It's now or never.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
I know you're speaking. Here's the thing. I know you're speaking to people who have been through this, and you're speaking to people who are currently in the phase of what you just discussed. I'm trying to prepare myself, and you have to be patient. And that's really what you did. You've outlined this, and it's almost as if it's trial and error. You've looked at and analyzed your situation, where you wanted to go, your vision, and you just executed. That's all it was. And I think that is such a brave thing to do when you have, mothers and their daughters. That's a tough. Yeah.
No,
you're putting that lightly. It's a level of perfection that you really have to live up to. I understand, especially being I'm the only girl. I'm not I have a brother, but I still feel almost like the only child, because I'm like, is it just me here? Because there's somebody else.
Because it usually falls on the girl.
It always does. Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. That's one of the things that I want to change too with my children, is to, share the burden, but everybody has the same responsibility in life. Right. So, Dr. Lynn, are you ready to give us your golden nuggets and add that ketchup just to recap?
I guess I I could just wrap it up with the key is, you know why it's so important to follow your dreams? Like, why did I have to follow my dream to close my practice, pursue something else, and move out of my hometown? It's because it's the soul's journey. And I believe this is the key to healing. You got to follow the dream in your heart. And that dream may change as you evolve. The thing is, that's the lie they tell us, that, you get your career, you get married, and you stay like this for the next, in your early 20s, and you stay like this for the rest of your life. This is why people are having midlife crises. The dream changes. You need to follow it. That's how you grow and evolve. That's what keeps you healthy. Like, your happiness is your health. Like, the more you allow yourself to follow your inspiration and your happiness and your joy, that's your immune system. That's the life force that's flowing through you. It keeps flowing at 100%. When you get stuck in the symptoms, the chronic symptoms, because you're not listening to those messages, like the small whispers that are guiding you somewhere else, but it's breaking you out of all the shoulds, all the obligations, all the guilt, all the stuff. So that's, I think, the key piece is we put off like happiness. Oh, it's fun to be happy. No, it's important. Like, that's why we're here. That's the soul's journey, is to create our heaven on earth. I truly, truly believe that.
Oh, that's awesome. But that was perfect. I love the heaven on earth. Oh, man, that's another hashtag. All right. Well, that's the episode today. I'm sure many of you can relate to Dr. Lynn's experience in your own way. Have you ever felt the odd one out because of a physical attribute? Even so, you've then grown into accepting yourself and find a place in your community which you feel then you've now outgrown? What is keeping you there? Or how do you feel about moving on to embrace your full potential? Perhaps Dr. Lynn's story perfectly describes your personal feelings, thoughts, or considerations. Are you there now? And even if you feel you have made peace with your decision, I'd still love to hear how you unraveled your feelings and pushed through to living your dream. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Dr. Lynn, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are, where they can find your resources or reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find my website. It's creatingmydesiredlife.com. You can find my book there. It's called My Journey to Grace, which is also on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But you can also email me there, get on my mailing list, or just ask me a question and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include all of Dr. Lynn's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving with Meaning the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I am on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community here. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and my Facebook page, Moving with Meaning. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble a bit in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My YouTube channel is up. Kindly run over there and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty. I'm Krystal on Moving with Meaning the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.